In this tutorial, I'll talk about the concept of XML. I will tell what is XML, what is the meaning of XML elements and attributes, what is the meaning of well-formed XML, what is the meaning of valid XML, what is URN, URL, URI, the concept of namespace and the concept of XML parsers. To begin with, we'll talk about what is elements and attributes. Clearly understanding what is a well-formed XML file and how it is different from a valid XML file. Clearly differentiate between a well-formed XML and a valid XML. Also the small concepts of URN, URL, URI, namespace. And then finally we'll end up with the concept of XML parsers. First is the concept of XML. What is XML? First thing to understand is you should not take up XML very seriously. XML is not something big to talk about. Only thing is to recognize that XML is nothing. XML is absolutely nothing. It is just a data format. It is just a way of organizing data. XML is just a way of organizing data in a file, because if any data is in unorganized format, say you have a file which contains some data, and if the data is in unorganized format, it cannot be easily processed by a program. If you want to programmatically process any data, then it is must that the data should be in a properly organized format. To properly organize anything, you should have some predefined rules or some predefined syntax. That is what is XML. XML is not a software. It is just some predefined syntax to follow. XML is not a software. You cannot install anything. It is only some predefined rules to follow. You read the rules and you write some XML. As I told, XML is nothing. It is just a data format. It is just a way of organizing data in a file. You can transport the data, you can store the data, means you can transport the file or you can store the file. XML is not a software. It is only some predefined syntax or some predefined rules to follow. XML is tag based. XML is tag based. There is no predefined tags. It has only user defined tags. User can create his own tags. XML is self-explanatory. If you look at an XML file, it explains itself. XML tags are called as elements. XML tags are called as elements. Elements include everything between opening and closing tag. Elements include everything between opening and closing tag. We have this sample XML file which talks about the price list of this coffee shop.
First we'll understand how to identify the elements. An element includes everything between the opening tag and the closing tag. Price list is the opening tag and price list is the closing tag. Price list has got some child elements also. It has got two coffee elements. An element includes everything between the opening tag and the closing tag. An element includes everything between the opening tag and the closing tag. Name is another element. Price is another element. An element includes everything between the opening tag and the closing tag.
Now you know how to identify elements. We have price list element, that is the parent. It is also called as the root element. The topmost element is called as the root element. In an XML file, there will be only one root element. Now we know how to identify the root element. Price list is the root element. And then we have child element, coffee. Coffee is the parent of name. Name and price, they are the children of coffee. Now we know in the hierarchy who is the parent and who is the child. We also have the concept of values. Element contains value. Mocha Java 11.95, espresso 12.5. These are called as the values. Element contains values. We have also seen the concept of parent, child and root. Next we talk about the concept of attributes. In an XML file we also have some extra data which can be defined through attributes. Attributes are optional. We have only one attribute, that is shop. Name of the attribute is shop and the value of the attribute is BTM. It is not considered a good approach to use lot of attributes in an XML file. In an XML file mostly you should have elements, but optionally you can have some attributes also. Next I talk about the concept of well-formed XML. An XML is an XML only if it is a well-formed XML. As we know, writing an XML file is very simple, and this XML has to be written strictly as per the predefined rules. When you decide to write an XML, it should be written strictly based on some predefined set of rules. Then only the file is considered as a well-formed XML file. Only if you write the XML based on the predefined syntax properly, then the file is considered as a well-formed XML. These are the rules what you must obey when you write an XML file. Root element is must. XML documents must have a root element. Second rule is elements must have a closing tag. If you have an opening tag, then you must have a closing tag. Third rule is XML tags are case sensitive. The same case what you use for the opening tag, the same case must be used for the closing tag also. That's the meaning of case sensitiveness. The elements must be properly nested. Whatever elements you are using, it should be in some proper order. If you have attributes, the attribute values must be quoted. Once again I am repeating the rules. Root element is must. Opening tag must have closing tags. Case sensitiveness, proper nesting, and attributes must be properly quoted. This is a well-formed XML file. We have the concept of root element, and the elements are following proper cases. Whatever case is being used in the top, the same case is used here also. If you have attributes, the attributes are properly nested. All opening tags are having closing tags. And the elements are all properly nested. So this file is a well-formed XML. It is must that if you write an XML, it should be well-formed XML. Otherwise, it's not an XML at all. Still now, I have spoken about well-formed XML. But well-formed XML alone is not enough. Sometimes we need more than well-formed XML. I will explain why. Take the case of three people. Take the case of three people, or say three programs who want to interchange nodes. They write XML. Now you have a look at the XML written by three remote people. I take the case of three people who want to interchange information. Now we have the nodes returned by three different people, three different groups you consider, or three different programs. The nodes returned by the first person, the root element is node, and then we have message as the child element. The note written by the second person, we have message as the root element, and then we have body. The note written by the third person, we have note as the root element, and then we have header as the child element. Now as we see, the element names are not matching. The XML what is been written, they are well formed XML. The XML what is been written, they are well formed XML. But it is not possible to seamlessly communicate with each other. Now if you look at the three XML, all the three are well formed XML. All the three are well formed XML. But this is not enough. If the three groups want to interchange their nodes or communicate with each other programmatically, for that they need to have some common elements. For seamless exchange of information across these different programming groups, it is good that they follow the same element names. I call it as the grammar of the XML file. To define the grammar of the XML file, we use the concept of DTD and schema. As we see, the different groups are following different element names. I don't like this approach. I want all the groups to follow the same element names. For that, we define the grammar of an XML file by using the concept of DTD and schema. Whether we use DTD or schema, that will define the grammar. It will define or propose element names. Say note is the root element, header is the child element, body is the child element. So like this, the DTD and schema will define some grammar. As I informed, well-formed XML is not enough. If the different groups want to interchange information seamlessly, it is important that they write XML in a uniform way. For having the uniform XML, we use the concept of DTD and schema. DTD stands for document type definition. What you see below is a DTD which predefines element names, root element and child elements. So here we see that this is a DTD which defines a note element, and note is the root element. The root element has the following children: to, from, heading and body. Now we have the predefined grammar. Whoever creates XML based on this DTD, the XML will have the same elements. The contents may vary, but whatever XML created based on the DTD, it will have the same elements, and people can write programs to process this particular XML. Now we have an XML file. Note is the root element. We have to, from, heading and body. This XML is written based on the particular DTD, what we have seen in the last slide. If this XML is perfectly written as per this DTD, then you call it as a valid XML. If this XML is perfectly written based on this particular DTD, then this XML is called as a valid XML. XML validated against a schema or DTD is called as a valid XML. XML validated against a schema or DTD, you call it as valid XML. As we have seen, DTD and schema are used to define the grammar of an XML file. Now I'll speak about XML schema. Schema is similar to DTD, but schema is considered a better approach compared with DTD. We can define the grammar of an XML file both through DTD and schema. However, schema is considered a new and better approach. Here, the same concept is once again repeated. Note is the root element, to, from, heading and body are the child elements. I will say in what way the schema is different from a DTD. DTD is not an XML format, but schema itself is an XML format. The schema file is an XML format, so it will be easy for the parsers to parse this particular schema. Schema itself is an XML file, so it will be easy for the parsers to parse this schema. The other points are schema supports data types. As I told before, XML is nothing, but now I am talking about data types. You do not have to take data types seriously. As I am repeating once again, XML is nothing. It's not a programming language. It's not a software. So it doesn't have any inbuilt data types. Schema supports data types. What does it mean is, we can only prescribe the data types. The actual implementation of the data types is provided by the different languages. When a Java developer sees string as the data types, he interprets it in his own way. When a .NET developer sees string as the data types, they interpret it in their own way. So different developers will interpret this particular data type in their own ways. The third good thing about schema is schema supports the concept of inheritance. Means one schema can inherit elements from another schema. Multiple schemas can be referred in one XML. When we write an XML based on schemas, you can write it based on multiple schemas. Schema itself is an XML format. Schema supports data types. One schema can inherit from another schema, and one XML can be returned based on multiple schemas. Valid XML. XML validated against a schema or DTD is called as a valid XML. XML validated against a schema or DTD is called as a valid XML. As I told before, if multiple people have to collaborate with each other, then it is good they have some predefined rules in a DTD or schema, and they write XML based on the DTD. Next, I'll explain the concept of URN and URL. URN stands for Uniform Resource Name. URL stands for Uniform Resource Location. URN stands for Uniform Resource Name. URL stands for Uniform Resource Location. First, we'll understand what is URN, and also we'll understand what is URL. This is Alan's home. This is Alan's home. To say that this is Alan's home, I can use two approaches. One is the concept of URN. Another is the concept of URL. The URN concept, to say Alan's home, I'll say Alan's home. As per the URL concept, to say that this is Alan's home, I may say something like this. Alan, number 30, BTM Road, Bangalore 76. So basically, what does it mean? What is the difference? URN is for known people to find out Alan's home. Alan's home makes sense for known people. Say the friends and relatives of Alan. If you just say Alan's home, it is enough for those people to locate his home. For the people who are Alan's friends, it is enough you say Alan's home. With that, they will be able to locate his address. And for the unknown people, for the people who doesn't know anything about Alan, you have to give the complete address. For the people who are unknown to Alan, you have to give the complete address. With that, they will be able to locate the address of Alan. Both make sense. The simple terminology of Alan's home makes sense for known people. And for unknown people, it is important that you have to give the complete address. Now, say for example, I want to tell the location of Google. I may say www.google.com. This is a complete address. With that, people can locate the Google website. And for the people who already knows about Google, it is enough I say Google site. If I say Google site, that is enough for people who already knows about Google. For the unknown people, I use google.com. Both make sense. If Alan's father wants to call him home, he will use Alan's home. If Alan's friends want to call him home, they will say Alan's home. The relatives, they will just use Alan's home. The unknown people, you have to give the complete address. Similarly, for the people who are already aware of Google, you can just use the terminology Google site. For the unknown people, you have to give the complete address. The known people, how they locate the address is by the concept of URL. The unknown people often needs the concept of URL, Uniform Resource Location. Both make sense. Both make sense. URL makes sense for the known people. URL makes sense for the unknown people. Simply if I say Alan's home or Google site or even google.com or even the whole thing, all that can be classified as URL. URL should be always more specific. URL should give the complete path to locate Alan or to locate the Google website. URL is a short notation to address a particular resource. URL is the complete location. URL is not precise but more than enough sometimes. URL is not precise but more than enough sometimes. URL is a precise location. When you learn about web services, often you come across URL. When you learn about web services, often you come across URL. You should not take it more seriously. It will not make any sense for you, but it will make sense for some people for whom it matters. So we have the concept of URL and URL. URL is just a nickname. It will not be precise. You should not get confused with URL. URL may not make any sense for you, but URL may make sense for some people. For them it matters. So don't get confused with URLs. Next, I speak about the concept of namespace. Namespace is a concept of avoiding naming collisions. Namespace is a concept of avoiding naming collisions. What does it mean by naming collisions? Say for example, we have a schema called as furniture.txt. This defines the grammar of furniture, a table with 4 legs. Next, we have one more schema. I call it as the HTML schema. The HTML schema also defines the grammar of a HTML table. It talks about table rows, table data. Now, as I told, we have two schemas, the furniture schema, second is HTML schema. The furniture schema talks about a table with 4 legs. This is the furniture, the table what you see in the real world. Second is the HTML table, to organize data in a table format. The HTML table comprises of table rows, table header and table columns. Now we have two tables. One table is totally different from the other table. The first one defines the furniture. The second one defines the HTML table. Now we have collision between the element names. We have the same table which indicates different things. The first table indicates a furniture. The second table indicates a HTML table. Now we have naming collisions. To avoid naming collisions, we use the concept of namespace. Now to the furniture schema, I give a nickname. I can give any name. Say I give the nickname as F. And for the furniture schema, I give a nickname. I give it as H. Now to refer to all the elements of the furniture schema, I use F colon. To refer to all the elements of the HTML schema, I use the nickname as H colon. To refer to all the elements of the furniture schema, I use the nickname as F colon. So with namespace, you can avoid naming collisions. With namespace, you can avoid naming collisions. Now I'll speak about the concept of XML parsers. Parsers are programs in any language which can read the XML. Say from a Java program you want to read the XML contents, or from a .NET program you want to read the XML contents, or from a PHP program you want to read the XML contents. You may like to read all the elements from top to bottom, or you may like to read few particular elements. You may like to update some elements, or you may like to create an XML from a Java program or a .NET or a PHP or any other program. Then we need the concept of parsers. Parsers are programs in any language. Parsers are program in any language which can read or manipulate or create an XML file. Parsers are nothing but some libraries which might be written in different languages. The parsers are generally categorized as DOM parsers and SAX parsers. A DOM and SAX are some concepts. DOM based parsers parse the whole file at one shot. This kind of parsers will parse the whole file at one shot. Say for example you have an XML file. It's a lengthy XML file. The DOM parsers will parse the whole XML file and return it at once. You have to wait till the time the parsing gets completed. Once the parsing is over, you will get the data extracted out of the parsing. So DOM based parsers will parse the whole complete XML file and then it returns the results. Say we have this complete XML file which is been fully parsed. After that you will get the data which is extracted. But SAX parsers are not like that. SAX parsers are a different type of parsers. SAX parsers are mainly suitable for larger files, because if you try to parse a very large file through DOM parsers may encounter errors because the system may run out of memory when you try to parse a very large file at one shot. When you try to parse a very large file at one shot, the DOM based parsers may encounter errors. So people use SAX parsers. SAX parsers will not try to parse the whole file at one shot. SAX parsers will not try to parse the whole file at one shot. What they do is they parse individual elements and keep returning the elements as and when they parse. So SAX is event driven. When an event occurs, the event here is a particular element getting parsed. As and when elements are getting parsed, they just keep getting returned. The value of those elements keep getting returned. Those are the SAX parsers. SAX parsers are event based parsers. These parsers keep returning the values as and when the values are getting fetched. So this kind of SAX parsers are event based. It keeps returning as it fetches and they are good for large files. SAX parsers are good for large files because large files, if you try to parse through DOM parsers, you may encounter error. SAX parsers are event driven. As and when the elements are getting parsed, they keep getting returned. The opposite case is the DOM parsers. They parse the whole file at one shot. They are convenient for small files. They are very convenient for small files. And SAX are event driven. So you have to create some event based programs which keep getting the values as returned by the SAX parsers. Now we have the two category of parsers, DOM based parsers and SAX based parsers. As a Java developer, how to do XML parsing? As a Java developer, how to do XML parsing? We have to use an API called as JAXP. Stands for Java API for XML parsing. Java API for XML parsing. JAXP is the API. JAXP libraries are provided as part of JDK kit. So by using JAXP APIs are provided as part of JDK kit. By using JAXP APIs, you can do both DOM based parsing or SAX based parsing, because JAXP has the internal implementations for DOM and SAX. So using JAXP, you can do DOM type parsing or SAX type parsing. Java API for XML parsing.